Here we are today with Elizabeth Hoyt, great historical author. You're a New York Times bestseller.
Okay.
Readers that have read you know that you don't disappoint, and anybody that hasn't tried Elizabeth Hoyt, they definitely have to, and especially, I would say, to start with Wicked Intentions, because as we were speaking, this is the first in a new series?
It's the first in a new series called the Maiden Lane series. It takes place in early Georgian England, and that's 1730s for those of us who don't know exactly when the Georgian England. It's during the, I believe, the first George, maybe the second George, one of the Georges.
I appreciate the clarification because I always confuse
Yeah,
myself.
exactly when. And it takes place in London. It has a lot to do with London and then with the St. Giles district in London. And it kind of revolves, it's beginning with series, so I'm kind of starting out with these big themes that are going to over-arc through the series. And into this, I bring the hero, who's Lazarus Huntington's Lord Care. And he's an aristocrat. He's not used to being in really the slums of St. Giles. But he's got a mistress who was killed there, and he doesn't know why she was killed there, who did it, and he has a deep urge to find out who did this to her, even though he didn't really love her, but she was important, and he needs to find out what happened to her. But since he doesn't know the area, nobody will talk to him, he's an aristocrat, he goes to the heroine, whose name is Temperance Dews. She's a widow, and she's running a fondling home for orphan children in St. Giles. And her fondling home has just lost its patron, so they're running out of money. They're about to be, tossed out of their house, and they make a deal that if she will help him talk to the residents of St. Giles, find out who this murderer is, he in turn will take her, and she's a daughter of a beer brewer, kind of lower middle class, respectable but lower middle class. Take her to aristocratic balls and soirees, and introduce her to wealthy, people who might become a patron to her home. So they're both kind of fish out of waters and different, and the opposite in each other's lives.
But have something to offer one another.
Exactly,
in their
yeah.
ventures,
Somebody they would never normally meet.
Yeah. I love the story. I thought it was wonderful. And
thank
you
you.
just do the most magnificent heroes. They're so tortured, coming through some really rough situations, but you always make it work in the end. How do you develop your heroes?
I often will think about who he is, and I'll often come up with something odd. So in this case, Lord Care can't be touched. It's physically painful for him to be touched by another person. Actually, it's mental, of course. But and then I think, well, why would that be? What would make a man like that? And so I went into his past and thought about what would make him that way, and then how he would react to that, how he would feel about that he can't make a connection to another human being. And then from that, so I get the hero. And then usually once I have the hero is always the most important in my books, usually. Once I get that, I'll go and find out who would be the perfect heroine for him, who can usually push all his buttons and make him face his own inner demons or whatever, and also bring him resolution. So at the end we have a nice happy ending where people are going to be happy after the book has ended.
Which we are. So that'll bring us to the next book. And when does that come out? And what
February,
is it called?
February 2011
is
is Notorious Pleasures.
Okay.
And that's actually about two aristocrats. I won't give too much away, but her name is Lady Hero. She's a daughter and sister of a duke, the Duke of Wakefield. She's very high up in the aristocracy. She is been brought up to be the perfect lady because she's a daughter of a duke. She's very, knows all the proper things to do, etiquette and everything. And she's found the perfect man to marry, who is a Marquess, and he's a member of Parliament, and he's a political ally of her brother. So her brother's kind of pushed through this, marriage. It's a marriage of convenience. So everything's perfect, and then on the very night that they're announcing their engagement ball, she meets his brother, her fiance's brother, who's a rake and not perfect at all, and falls in love with him, of course.
Of course. Oh, that sounds like a wonderful one. I love those stories.
Yeah.
So you are a successful best-selling author. What advice would you give to somebody that's just starting, an aspiring author? Is there any particular advice you would give someone?
I think, first of all, you have to write every day. It's important to write every day. But also, I think you have to really feel the emotion of your story. You have to really dig deep and get that emotion. And sometimes it's funny, you wouldn't think it'd be a problem, but as a writer, sometimes it's hard to face those emotions. I'll often do a very emotional scene, and when I'm on the edits, I'll go back and rewrite and think, you know what, I missed it. I was shying away from the deep emotion. I'll go back and layer in more emotion and really cut to the bone with whatever the problem is, or the angst, the fear, the sadness. Because I think that's what makes a good book in general, but especially a good romance, is you want the deep emotions in there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. In fact, talking with readers earlier, I think that was the most important part of what they felt books should have, is the emotion. And they feel that the characterization is definitely key, but making sure that emotion resonates throughout the entire book.
We want to feel that emotion. We want to feel, and often in romances you have to have the sadness or the agony before you get to the happiness. You have to, that is the cathartic, feel. So
you do such a great job. Now I have to ask you, on a personal note, what does Elizabeth Hoyt do for fun? What do you like to do when you're not writing all the time?
I like to garden, but I often will have to give it as a goodie at the end of the day. So if I finish this chapter, I can go out and weed my garden, which sounds like a thing that you would not like to do, but I actually like weeding.
So do you read in your spare time?
I do, yes, I do.
What do you read? What do you like?
I just read Aline Dreyer's Barely a Lady. Have you read that yet?
I have not, and
it's
I'm dying
wonderful.
to.
It takes place during the Waterloo. It's around the Battle of Waterloo, and it's very historically detailed. That always makes me envious. It's like, oh, she's got some good research there. And it's speaking of emotion, it's very emotionally fraught, because it's about a divorced couple where he's shunned her, and she's she's suffered because of this, and then she comes upon him on the field, and he's lying almost dead, and it's like, well, should she save him or not? So it's a great book. I just read that, and Jennifer Ashley.
Yes, yes.
So,
so you read a lot of romance then?
Oh yeah.
You'll stay within the genre and
I try not to read too much historical romance.
Yeah.
I do it between writing. But yeah, I read paranormal, romance, suspense, a little bit of mysteries.
Yeah, yeah, love it all.
Yeah.
It's those happy endings, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the emotion.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely. Well, you do a great job at all of the above, and can't wait for the rest of the series. Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.